It's time for the Larry H. Miller Utah Summer Games at Southern Utah University in Cedar City. Register today to participate in the 40th anniversary season of a Utah sports tradition at utahsummergames.org. Participate in over 50 sports around the state. Then plan to join the opening ceremonies Friday, June 5th, presented by State Bank of Southern Utah. Register today to participate in the 40th anniversary season of the Larry H. Miller Utah Summer Games.
Do you love the Tabernacle Choir? This year, the choir's music is everywhere you are. Listen to your favorite choir songs and music and the spoken word anytime you want on Alexa by simply enabling the skill.
Alexa, play music in the spoken word.
Now playing music in the spoken word.
You can also download the Tabernacle Choir app, subscribe to the choir on YouTube, listen on Spotify, and have access to all their wonderful music. Happy listening.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. It's time to talk Stanley Cup Final with Jay Stevens, NHL insider, host of the Utah Puck Report for KSL Sports. Jay, good morning.
Good morning.
Jay, I have to imagine you're about 0% surprised that Carolina is in the final. They have the best regular season record. And what percent surprised are you Vegas is there to play them, given the fact that, with 10 or 15 games to go, you weren't 100% sure Vegas was going to qualify for the postseason?
Yeah, I'm 100% surprised that it's Vegas and not Colorado. And it's just a surprising thing. And I guess I shouldn't be, because the President's Trophy winner hardly ever wins the Stanley Cup.
Right.
And I need to see how many times they actually make it to the final, but there's just something about that curse, and it turned out to be true. Colorado had a ton of injuries, and Vegas just seemed to be clicking, and everybody's giving Tortorella all the credit for balancing the lines and doing all that stuff, and it's true, for sure it's true. But the real truth, and I've told you before, we were talking about it the other day in the office, the day they hired him is also the day they got Carter Hart back from injury. And he came in and he stole the show. He was good.
Of all the things you could have, a hot goaltender.
Goaltending is, that it is the playoffs. There's the saying that goaltending's 75% of the game. Unless you don't have it, then it's 100%.
Yeah.
But in the playoffs, and especially in the final, it's always a hot goalie. If you think back over the years with Cheevers and even back to Jaguar with the Ducks, it was Jaguar carrying that Ducks team that shouldn't have even been in the playoffs and winning Stanley Cups. And then Brodeur, maybe that team was pretty stacked and pretty defensive, but it's always been a hot goaltender. And that's the big X factor coming into this. Carter Hart's been tested. He's really good. He's proven that he's good. He's got a lot to prove. And Frederik Andersen has really not had the workload because Carolina's just so well balanced. He's getting 13 to 15 shots a game instead of the standard 25.
I am, as I learn later in life, as I learn more about multiple sports, I am stunned by the crossover in multiple sports. And watching and listening, I would flick on Stanley Cup playoff games because I'm a guy and I got a remote control and there's a game on and I'm bam, 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 right? But I'm not listening to post-game press conferences. I wasn't that into it. And now I'm trying to, and I hear these guys talking and it's like I'm listening to Pablo Mastroeni on skates. Right? The RSL's head coach, Pablo Mastroeni, is like, they always talk about low block defending. He said, why would you drop back and defend 20 yards in front of your goal where there could be a deflection, something bad could happen? Why wouldn't you defend 80 yards from your goal, 90 yards, win the ball and go score right there? Just win it and be right there ready to attack. And then I watch and it's like, I was actually listening. I was in my car and they were talking, I think it was game 4. And I was listening to the game, and there's another thing I wouldn't have done until we had an NHL team. I would not have listened to the radio, but I was just flicking around, button punching. Everybody's in commercial break, and boom, there was the game. So I started listening, and they're basically, I don't even know who it was on the radio broadcast. They're like, Carolina is squeezing life out of Montreal. Montreal has only got like one of the last 15 shots. And then there was another shot. Now they got one of the last 16 shots. They're counting down. It's like Montreal is struggling. They're getting trapped in the middle of the ice. They can't even get into the attacking zone. So as much as we talk about hot goaltending and you talk about the way Vegas defends, and we saw some of that, how much can these two teams stop each other at the red line or blue line before you even get anywhere where it's dangerous?
Yeah, well, that's the thing about both these teams are really good at matching the other team. I just listened to an interview with Carcone from the Mammoth, and he said, playing Carolina, you can't even breathe. There's no room, and it's 10 times worse during the playoffs. The way they match up, I think you would compare it to a man-on-man, but it's in the neutral zone, which is kind of unheard of. The New Jersey Devils used to run a neutral zone trap that was similar. But, yeah, they're all in, and Rod Brindamore has those guys just fired up about nobody comes into our zone. It used to be like protect the house, just like football, right? Protect the house, which is in the hash marks. But he's like, don't let them in our zone. Don't let any shots. And they did it. Montreal just set the record for the least amount of shots in a I think a conference final. And it's just that they're very well coached. They're so deep. There is not a slow player on that team. And then you flip the script and look at the other side, and lines 3 and 4 for Vegas are slow. I mean, it's Stone and Hurdle. They're amazingly talented people, but they're slow. So I just think you're going to hear a lot of the same stuff. You're going to see the shot count not be high on one side. I think it comes out to it's Carolina's series to lose. And it's just if Carter Hart steals all the saves, if he makes all the saves, then Carolina is going to smother Vegas. But I said a lot of the same things about Colorado and Vegas. So, it just kind of – but everything I've watched and everything I know about hockey, and it just seems like Carolina is one of the most well-balanced teams I've ever seen in the NHL.
But Colorado was not healthy, and Carolina is, right? Correct,
yeah. And Carolina has barely been tested. They lost one game in the playoffs. The rest of the time they play 4 games, they get out, they don't get banged up really. And yeah, Colorado was decimated. Their top 4 guys were going down. And when you lose McKinnon to a bad shot off the ankle, I'm sure we're going to find out later that ankle was broken. And Makar was already injured. And those are the 2 of the best players in the whole league, not just on the Colorado Avalanche, but in the entire league. So yeah, it does kind of show that Colorado is more vulnerable than Carolina is. But, man, Vegas has pulled some magic during these playoffs. And you just think back 2 overtime goals, and it could have been the Mammoth advancing. And it just seemed like Vegas got better and better.
Yeah. I guess that's where, as much as sports overlap, they don't. Because I think one of the big lessons watching the Spurs win Game 7 in Oklahoma City was that Oklahoma City at the end of the series had a couple of big injuries. Guys who might have been able to come in and give them just a little bit of boost when they had the lead in the second half, and they weren't that far away from winning, but they didn't have their second leading scorer in Jalen Williams and didn't have A.J. Mitchell off the bench. But early in the series, when the Spurs fell behind 2-1, they didn't have Fox. And so they're playing young guys big minutes, and just a veteran to rotate through there might have helped. And they lost 2 of the first 3. So the lesson the rest of the league is make sure you're healthy. And I think there's going to be more load management in the NBA next year because nobody's going to miss that lesson. But in hockey, that's not the way they think, and that's not the way they handle it. And Colorado will be going, to the wall next season. And if guys get injured, so be it, right?
Well, yeah, and we talked about this a little bit 2 years ago when hockey first came in, and you and I were talking. I said the thing about the Florida Panthers is they play all year like it's the playoffs, and you think that it hurt them in the long run and it give them more injuries, and because they weren't doing load management and they were hitting everything that moved. It was incredible to watch them for those years. But then you saw how much that made them fall apart. But one of the coolest things about the NHL playoffs is typically you're going to get good play out of your big stars. They're going to make good plays, but it's guys you've never heard of or guys that your third and fourth line guys that are just built for playoffs. There was a guy named Dustin Penner who won a cup with the Ducks and he won a cup with the Kings. And I think he just gets picked up for 1 year and he's just that guy. He scores 2 points all season and then he'll have 6 in the playoffs. And Utah's Trevor Lewis was kind of the same way. He'd have 10 points in the season and 5 or 6 in just the playoffs. So yeah, there's tons of injuries, and even when there's not, you're going to see guys find a way to break through, and you're going to hear about players that you haven't heard about before.
It's funny you mentioned that. Back to the comparative sports. When Dave Checketts held a media availability after he'd been awarded RSL, but before they'd ever played a game, he said, when I was in Utah, I knew how the NBA worked because he was running the Jazz. And when he went to New York to run Madison Square Garden, the Knicks and Rangers, he says, the first thing I learned about hockey, totally different vibe. In basketball, you have to have the best player because he can be on the court for 40 of the 48 minutes, and he can take all the big shots. You better have Michael Jordan. He said, but in hockey, you got to rotate through the lines. He says, there isn't a human alive who can stay out on that ice for 3 minutes. Guys are going to be gassed. He says, you need 4 lines. You need 3 pairs of defensemen. You need a hot goaltender. He says, it's about the room. It's about the group. And he says, you never know who the hero is going to be. And there it is right there. That never changes.
And that's where a GM, these GMs that are making these moves, and then you watch what Bill Armstrong's doing and how he's doing stuff, and then you look back to some of the moves he's pulled, and to make an offer sheet on a free agent is almost unheard of in the NHL, and Bill Armstrong did that in St. Louis, and that's what helped them. He was part of it, and they did it. Nobody had done it in years, and it was kind of almost an insult. But they're like, hey, this is part of the rules. We're going to do it. They picked up 2 players that people thought, well, yeah, those are $2 million players, whatever. And those were some of the guys scoring the biggest goals when they win their Stanley Cup. So it comes down to guys just knowing that balance and trusting people to come through at the right time and knowing every piece. And that was one of the questions I asked both Torini and Armstrong in the last interview, on the exit interviews. I said, what style of player was the Mammoth missing? Because they know. Mm-hmm. And they know there's something that they didn't have this year that they're going to want next year. And Brendan Moore and his team in Carolina, they've been figuring that out forever. And I don't know if you saw the handshake line, and Brendan Moore and Martin St. Louis from Montreal, they complimented each other, and Brendan Moore said, I see it. You guys are just getting started, and you'll be here again for the next several years. There's just that balance, and you just got to know what it takes to get through the playoffs. And then there's always a surprise too.
So do the Mammoth need more guys who can grind? More guys who can say nobody gets in our zone? More guys who in 100%. The middle of the ice are just beasts?
We need 3 more Jack McBains, honestly. We need guys like that are just – and Lawson Krause was really good at it too. And I've talked about it before. There's a guy coming out of juniors. He's playing with Denoye right now, Gabe Smith. He's a beast. He's a bull. And Cole Baudouin is also going to be a bull. I mean, they're 20 years old now, 6'4", 225. Yeah. They're gonna be that guy. They're gonna be that grit sandpaper that you want in your lineup.
To get back to that about the final and something you said about Carolina, as good as they are in the way they've dominated, only losing once, in most sports, and I don't know why, but in a lot of sports, the West is better than the East. But in hockey, the East is better than the West. Even if Colorado had been healthy and had won and had the better record, wouldn't you have picked Carolina given the number of 100-point teams on the East side and what they had to get through in the Eastern Conference playoffs?
That's a really good question. I don't think so. When I went through and I did my bracket, I had this is what blew me away even. I had everything right until this part. This is where my bracket fell apart, was Colorado losing. I had Colorado winning just because I thought they had the depth, and they have way better goaltending. I know a lot of people were blaming Colorado's goaltending, but the 2 Woods, the lumber yard, they call their crease with Blackwood and Wedgwood, they had everything they needed to get through, and I think they would have matched up. It's another team that's been there. I think they're a lot like Carolina, but they had more speed, and their guys are usually able to find more open space, even with a team like Carolina playing against them. But I think that would have been one of the best series to watch if Colorado was healthy, to see them go all the way. I don't know. That would have been it would have been a 7-game series, and I would have picked Colorado to win, but it could have easily been Carolina.
Yeah. While you were talking, I did a quick search. Here's your answer on the President's Cup. 40 President Cup winners, 12 have made it to the Stanley Cup final. So if they can make it to the final, their odds of winning are pretty good. But that's 28 teams getting knocked out before the final by a conference opponent.
Yeah, and it's the curse, right? And hockey players are superstitious. They're very superstitious. And you see them, they're not touching any trophies anymore. And I'm starting to wonder, are there going to be teams, not to get into the whole Jazz, tanking thing, but are there going to be teams that maybe take the foot off the gas a little bit, not win it just because they don't want that curse? It sounds dumb, but I could see it happening just because of all the superstitions.
The combination of get your team healthy and then the superstition of the President's Cup, those two things. Except you got to get your goaltender dialed in and feeling confident. And he can't feel confident if you take your foot off the gas and you're giving up, 35, 40 shots in a game. No goalie wants to face that.
Yeah, so some goaltenders really thrive on that.
Really?
Veggie's one of them. Mike Richter from back in the day, even Henrik Lundqvist. I know you probably don't know a lot of these names, but these are guys that...
Actually, I do, because goalies are stars, and they're the celebs. Nice. They're the ones I can... Richter, that's a pretty big name.
Yeah, okay, perfect. I like this.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was one of my favorite all-time goaltenders, and he was famous of saying, like, hey, I don't want to be in a game where I'm seeing 15, 20 shots. I want 10 shots a period because I'm in it. So, like, if it's unheard of, but if the NHL, if some NHL teams did start saying, hey, we're going to rest our players a little bit and do some load management going down the stretch and let our starting goaltender just get out there and get a real feel for, a lot of pucks. I could see that working. Yeah. I would, as a goaltender, I would have liked that going into a playoff series because that would make me feel better about my game, especially if I'm on a team that's a President's Trophy caliber team. You're not seeing that many shots. So I'd really like to get a chance to get out there and prove myself to not only to the fan base, but to myself, be like, okay, this is how it is when I'm under siege and I'm getting shell shocked. And, and then you go into playoffs with that little bit more experience.
There are nights in the winter where there are so many games, and I'm trying to track BYU, Utah, and Utah State. I'm trying to follow the Jazz and the Mammoth, plus whatever else is going on in the conference or the league, right? And you can't see every minute, every game. So I always try to make sure I check box scores and see if there's anything that's really unusual. And I thought, and obviously I know less about goaltending than a lot of people, but every time I see the Mammoth, when I start to see 30 shots plus, bad things happen. And I haven't and I should go back and add this up, right, and see if the analytics match the eye test or the totals. But I always think if you see mid-20s or something in shots, it's really hard to limit to a team to less than 20 shots. It just doesn't seem to happen very often. It does occasionally, but not very often. But like mid to high 20s, and then Veggie's only given up 1 or 2 goals, and his save percentage is over 90%, and it just looks great. But, man, you start seeing 33 shots, 35 shots, 30, like, bad things happen.
Yeah.
I mean, it's brave for the goaltender to say that, and I get why they say it, show no weakness, but really, I don't think you want that.
Well, you don't want a lot of high quality inside backdoor, wide open backdoor shots. Mm-hmm. You don't want guys standing right in front of you, tipping them. Ones that you really don't have a chance at.
Yeah.
But if it's 30 shots,
I'm
not saying they're easy shots from the outside or anything. I'm just saying realistically that you could save them, that you had a chance at. A lot of goalies are going to save that. Veggie's one of them. I think Veggie just gets overworked in general anyway. We need somebody else. He can't play 65 games. It's unfair to him. I think it's unfair to the fan base to, and he wants to. And I asked that question too at the exit interview, and he said, no, I'll play every game. And every goalie's going to say that because you don't want to give up the net.
Right.
But typically if you're seeing 35 shots, that means your team's not playing that well either, and you're giving up those high-scoring opportunities.
Yeah.
So you're dead right. And the other crazy thing about the NHL this year, this is one of the first years that the average, like typically your best goaltenders on your best teams are 93, 94% save average. And this year across the board, it was 90, 91, 89. It's something was going on. Like shooters have figured it out. I'm in a bunch of goalie groups on Facebook and stuff, and they're tearing down every part of goaltending again since Jonathan Quick kind of revitalized it, after Jaguar revitalized it, after Belfour revitalized it. So I think you're going to see a new style of goaltending coming in starting next year.
Well, be like the NHL needs to be like the NFL. Scoring sells. So change the rules, and let's face it, pads are a science, right? How much of the goal can you block without even moving? All they got to do is change the rules and change the clothing, change the pads.
7 years ago, they made the pads smaller. Mm-hmm. They changed what we could wear on our chests. They changed what we could wear on our legs. They took 1.5 inches off the width of the leg pads, and then they capped them. Even a guy like you've got one of the goaltenders coming up right now, Michael Robel for the Mammoth. He's 6'7", and he has to wear the same size pads as somebody that's 6'3", 6'4". So they capped the height. It used to be like, oh, if you're 6'4", you can have bigger pads or whatever. Or Jaguar wore pads that went up to his belly button. Yeah, you're right. So they keep changing it, and they did start threatening to make the net wider, which would blow everybody. Like that would just
blow everybody's minds, right?
Yeah.
But people want to see 4-3, not 2-1. I mean, we've all been in the arena. It erupts, right? That's what people want to see. It erupts.
Yeah, 100%. They should be erupting for those big, not the big glove saves, but the big leg pad saves that nobody realizes how important those were.
So you've got Carolina. It's Carolina's to win then, right?
Yeah, I got Carolina in 6 just because I think Carter Hart's going to steal a couple.
Okay. All right, there it is. Hey, Jay, thank you very much. And people can follow you on YouTube, KSLSports.com, the KSL Sports app. You're everywhere, right?
I'm everywhere. Everywhere KSL is, that's where I'm at.
All right. Jay Stevens, NHL Insider, host of the Utah Puck Report. Check it out. Jay, we appreciate you coming on. Thanks a lot. All right. There's a look at the Stanley Cup Final. Game 1, Tuesday night. And then Game 1 of the NBA Finals, Wednesday night. Ben Anderson, Utah Jazz Insider for KSL Sports, co-host Jake and Ben, will join us at the top of the hour, 9 o'clock, to look ahead to the Spurs and the Knicks. All right, DJ and PK, more in a moment. Stay with us right here on The Zone.
They've been doing it for a while.
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson.
He covers the NHL for Sportsnet. He is Luke Fox.
Now Austin Matthews is obviously very much in the news, and you've seen the Mammoth's name tied pretty closely to Matthews if he were to hit the trademark.
Utah's interest in Austin Matthews is 100% accurate. They would have to join a few other teams that would probably be raising their hand. If he does say, hey, I want out, for sure the Mammoth would be all over that. The Sharks would be over that. The Kings. There would be a number of teams that would want a player like him because they just don't become available very often, especially when they're in their prime. A couple years back, he scored 69 goals, threatened 70, which hasn't been done since the 90s. So a player like that may or may not become available, absolutely, the Mammoth are all over that. They want a superstar.
Catch Jake and Ben, afternoons from 2 to 6 on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Hey, sweetie, your mother showed me this Carvana thing for selling the car. I'm going to give it a try. Wish me luck. Me again. I put in the license plate. It gave me an offer. Unbelievable. Okay, I accepted the offer. They're picking it up Tuesday from the driveway. I haven't even left my chair. It's done. The car's gone. I'm holding a check. Anyway, Carvana, give it a whirl. Love ya.
So good, you'll want to leave a voicemail about it. Sell your car today on Carvana. Pickup fees may apply.
Join Scotty G and the coach Tim Lacombe Friday from 10 to 2 at the Larry H. Miller Summer Games in Cedar City. Celebrate 40 years of a sports tradition. If you're just joining us, great Game 7. Really enjoyed it Saturday night. Thought the young guys came up big for San Antonio. Chet Holmgren, major disappointment. Caruso, major disappointment. There are lessons to be learned. I think it just reinforces everything we complain about in NBA basketball. I don't complain about it, but we keep watching it apparently. Some of you will say I don't, but you see the audiences and clearly somebody does. Game 7. What did it show us? You got to keep taking threes. The Spurs shot fewer free throws. They made fewer free throws. They made fewer twos. But they took more threes. They made more threes. That's why they won the game. So if you think people are going to cut back on the three-pointer in any big, meaningful way, good luck with that. Not happening. Are people going to keep tanking? Yes. They'll adjust to the new rules, but trades are hard to make. It's hard to sign free agents, so you got to improve through the draft. And since the Spurs just won with the first, second, and fourth pick, people are going to keep tanking. That is going to be the lesson. If the Knicks can win the finals, maybe there's a lesson in there that there is a different way and maybe you could make it work. Now, there's an argument that they only pulled off what they pulled off because they're New York. And you can only do that in New York and Milwaukee and Salt Lake City and Denver and Indiana and I don't know, whatever other small, cold markets you want to point out. Good luck. Good luck, Detroit and Toronto. You're not going to attract the people New York brings in, so forget about it. I think these lessons are scattered all over the finals. And worst, because this is the one that bugs me the most, I'm not as if I had to rank things that irritate me, tanking less, three-point shooting less, not that they don't irritate me, they do. But to me, the number one irritant is the stars aren't playing. Starters are sitting every night. And I'm enough into basketball that I'm not just there for the star. I appreciate the second, third, fourth starter, and they do stuff that entertains me. And I like the way they impact games, and it's fun to watch those guys play. And the deeper you get into the roster, the more guys are missing. You got to figure it out. But guess what? The Spurs and Thunder couldn't figure it out. Spurs had injuries, were shorthanded early in the season, early in the series. They lost 2 of the first 3. Thunder had injuries. They were impacted late in the series. They lost 3 of the last 4. I mentioned earlier in the show, I was texting with a friend at halftime when the game was very much still up in the air. I thought the Spurs had the upper hand, but it was far from a done deal. And it's like whoever loses a series is going to say if we were healthy, we could have won it. And they agreed. They're like, yeah, they can fall back on that. It might not be true. We don't have the alternative universe. Maybe if Fox had been able to play early, San Antonio still would have been down 2-1. And maybe if Jalen Williams was there, he'd have gone 2 for 20-something, and they lost game 6 and 7. But nonetheless, it gives you the opportunity to say, hey, if we'd been healthy, we'd have won. So if you think that load management is going to stop, it's not just, yes, do teams load manage to tank? Absolutely, the Jazz did it. But even the playoff teams are going to load manage. And first off, they were already doing it. They've been doing it since the days of Manu Ginobili, Tony Parker, Tim Duncan. The Spurs were as far as I can tell, it was 20 years ago the Spurs started doing this. They were the first one to get into it, and then the whole league followed. And it's not changing. And that means everything we watch from the Jazz in the offseason, and let's face it, we're one playoff series and 2 weeks away from the offseason, everything we see from them has to be with that in mind. You know, the whole thought that Walker Kessler is going to play 78 games and Jaren Jackson is going to play 76 games and Lauri Markkanen is going to play 74 games. Ha! No. So you're going to have to build a roster where each one of those guys misses 10, 15, or 20 games. And nobody wants to hear that, and I don't want to hear it. I definitely don't want to hear it. I want to show up every night, and I want to see those guys playing. Well, show up when they're at home, but watch on TV when they're on the road. I want to see those guys playing. But if they each miss 10, 15, 20 games, you're looking at somewhere between, 30, 40, 50, 60 games where you're going to be missing at least one. Now, maybe there'll be fewer, but some of those nights you'll be missing 2 guys. And how do you build a roster? So you tell me who guy 9, 10, 11, 12 is on the roster, and it matters because that's who A.J. Mitchell was. And it mattered they didn't have him out there in the second half to hit a couple big shots. Or in the first half, maybe to build a little bit of a lead and go in up at halftime instead of down at halftime. I mean, they retook the lead a couple times in the third quarter. That game was going back and forth. This is a wildly entertaining game. The one thing I don't like about Game 7s, and this is totally predictable, but the one thing I don't like about Game 7s is that there's less basketball and there's more wrestling. There were so many guys holding jerseys, holding arms, grabbing shoulders, hand-checking 30 feet from the hoop, 5 feet from the referee. And SGA's trying to drive, and they just shove them. Because it's Game 7, and the refs don't want to put someone in foul trouble, call early fouls in the first quarter. If you have the game, or if you can go back and watch it on YouTube or whatever, look at just up like the first 5 minutes until somebody's got 10 points. I mean, like when it was 6-4 or whatever. SGA's trying to drive. This is blatant hand check right in front of the ref. But they know. I mean, tip of the cap for being savvy. They know they're not going to get called for the foul. The refs don't want to put someone in early foul trouble. They don't want to put someone in early bonus. They don't want to decide a Game 7. They're going to let them play. It's largely what the public wants. Some of you are in the rules are rules camp. But it's largely what the public wants. And so they give the public what they want. And the players know it. So there are just so many fouls. And you can hate flopping, but honestly, the play of the game. Yak, we haven't talked about this. What in your mind was the play of the game? I think it's pretty clear. It was a big moment. The Thunder had some momentum, and the Spurs did something. I thought it was Hartenstein's steal and the chase down block.
Cornette.
And he comes up with the block on Hartenstein. If you watch it, up top, and the refs don't want to call everything, and I get that. Up top, it's clean, right? Ball, it's clean. Yeah. But he goes through the body.
Yeah.
If Hartenstein goes down at home with the crowd going nuts, I think he gets the call. He stayed on his feet. He didn't get the call. Everyone oohed and awed. They should have. It was a great play. It was a great play. You got a role player. You only get to play a few minutes when Wemby sits. Make a difference. In whatever time you're given, make a difference. It's what we all clamor for. We all want. He did it. But if Hartenstein flops, if he, in the words of the great Brian Dunseth, if he pulls up the landing gear and goes to the floor, which is what SGA does all the time.
And if I recall correctly, San Antonio went right back down the court and hit a three, right?
Stayed on. Hartenstein stayed on his feet and ran back and tried to defend.
But they hit a three, I think, on that ensuing possession.
They did. No, it was a 4-point swing, so it was a 2.
It was a 2,
but
okay.
They did score.
But they scored, and that
But they scored. It was a 4-point swing.
Yeah.
Because I remember I think it was Reggie Miller screaming 4-point swing. If Hartenstein, and nobody wants to watch the flopping. You don't want to watch the flopping in basketball. You don't want to watch the flopping in soccer. You don't want to watch the flopping in football, for that matter. Don't do it.
Well, and that's the thing about this is there were points in that game where both teams were using that to bait the referees.
Yeah.
But then
because it works.
Sure,
the
it
reason
does.
they don't do it in other sports, it doesn't work as well. The baseball equivalent of flopping is the pitcher grabbing the pitch and trying to pull it back in the strike zone to fool the ump.
You're talking about the catcher.
And the catcher, the automatic strike zone is kind of taking that out of the game, right?
The ABS has gotten rid of framing,
right?
No doubt.
Yes, I know. That's the expression, framing. Well, it's the way he frames the pitch. Stop it. Come on, man. We're not that stupid. Don't talk down to us. Should have flopped. Might have gotten a call, might have gotten free throws. Could have been a very different deal. And then you're dropping back with a set defense and you don't give up a bucket. And it was an 8-point game, but it was really 6. That was a concession dunk at the end. Nobody cared about it. It was over. All right, well, pull yourself together. Wednesday, game 1. And the Thunder can figure out how to fix this. And then now we're going to get the Spurs dynasty. There's no way to stop Wemby. Wasn't it just a year ago there was no way to stop the Thunder? Didn't we all hear that? Heck, we might have even been saying it.
Yeah, the OKC era was
It is
short-lived.
so hard to win 2 or 3 in a row.
Yeah.
Nobody's won 4.
Yeah.
In my lifetime. I'm not old enough to remember when UCLA or the Celtics rattled off their UCLA won 7 in a row. I remember the last one. I remember the 10th one, but I don't even remember their 9th one. And I don't remember any of the Celtics titles. I wasn't old enough. That was before my time. And since then, when have you seen someone win 4? I remember my dad making a big deal when Reggie Jackson and Sal Bando and the A's won 3 in a row. And I do have a vague memory of watching some of those games. I remember they beat the Dodgers in 5. I remember watching some of that. And then the Yankees won 3 in a row, but nobody's won 4. So unstoppable, forever, dynasty. Man, dynasty is, if you win 3 out of 4, that's a dynasty. Even back-to-back in the NFL is a dynasty. I saw people arguing on Twitter over the definition of a dynasty. People, stop it. It's not real life. You don't even know these people, and they don't use their real names. Knock it off. Twitter's for fun. Find a gift that makes you laugh and put it up there and move on. That's what it's for. Some guy just said something funny, and in a commercial break, I hit him with the, who's the actor? Nick Offerman. Nick Offerman from Parks and Rec. And he's got the little sideways giggle. He's got the total straight face with a big bushy mustache. He just totally deadpans, and then there's just this little glint in his eye and a little sideways giggle. Very funny. Very understated. All right, DJ and PK, we got to take a break. Ben Anderson, Utah Jazz insider for KSL Sports and co-host of Jake and Ben, is coming up at 9 o'clock. We'll run these theories by him. I believe that Game 7 reinforces you must load manage and you must build your roster to load manage. And the Jazz have to do it. Tell me who guys 10, 11, and 12 are. You think they're not going to play much? I think they are, because I don't think guys are going 82. So we'll talk load management. We'll talk three-pointers. We'll talk flopping. There's another trend in there. I'm forgetting all my trends, Jock. Should have written them down. Three-pointers, flopping.
3s versus 2s, flopping, and then
load management. There was one more.
I think it was a 3, right?
I thought there was a 4th one. All right, well, I'll figure it out in the break. We'll have it all organized by the time Ben gets here. I think there are a lot of trends. Tanking. The draft. It was tanking.
Tanking.
The Spurs reinforced.
Yeah.
That series, regardless of who wins, both those teams tanked to get where they are. The Thunder.
The Spurs went 1-4-2 in successive drafts.
And the Thunder, well, actually in 3 out of 4.
Sorry, 3 out of 4, you're right. My bad.
What? They didn't have a high pick the year there wasn't a good draft? Like, it's almost like they were tanking and they were managing that, Doc. And the Thunder, they did trade for SGA, so that's a different deal. But they did get Holmgren with the number 2 pick, and he came up small there at the end. That was a bad Game 7 for him.
He's still 24 years old and got a lot of potential, though.
Okay. You're right.
Go ahead and trade him, OKC.
Well, they're going to have to move somebody.
Yeah.
And part of that will be what do they get back, and now they probably get back less because people will raise an eye. So, but there are a lot of people who'd love to get to a conference final, to a Game 7, so that he could come up short. So you can complain all you want, but he was pretty good to get him there. All right, DJ PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
3, 2, 1. This is Scotty G and Coach Tim LeComb.
Kurt Heelan, NBC Sports, and ProBasketballTalk.com.
You can't talk about the Knicks and their dominance without talking about how futile the Cavs were. But the non-timeout and the issue all series with Harden, I was surprised to see Kenny Atkinson be brought back. Were you?
A little. I think that they genuinely, like, their front office backs him, and they think, look, we got farther than we could have. The weird thing is it looks kind of like they're going to run it back. They don't trade for James Harden. That deal doesn't get done without a handshake deal to extend him. They're not going to let Mitchell go. It's going to be an interesting offseason if they run it back. Right now, that's the way they're talking, but I can't see that being, just seems like they'll be worse.
That seems like the definition of insanity to me.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you know how that's going to end. You just do. You've got enough data points to know how that's going to end.
And everybody's going to be better, and if you're just the same, you're fading. You're getting worse.
Catch Scotty G and Coach weekdays from 10 to 2. Presented by Mountain Land Supply on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Make game day yours. Tickets, food and drinks, stats, and streaming. Everything you need is in the Utah Mammoth app. Download today and make game night easy. Download on both Android and iPhone. Tusk Top.
Mom, can you tell me a story?
Sure. Once upon a time, a mom needed a new car.
Was she brave?
She was tired, mostly. But she went to Carvana.com and found a great car at a great price. No secret treasure map required.
Did you have to fight a dragon?
Nope. She bought it 100% online. From her bed, actually.
Was it scary?
Honey, it was as unscary as car buying could be.
Did the car have a sunroof?
It did, actually.
Okay, good story.
Car buying you'll want to tell stories about. Buy your car today on
Carvana.
Delivery fees may apply.
I started a little brush fire, Yock. I did something I don't usually like to do, but I couldn't help myself. We put up the...
Did you fan the flames of the rivalry?
I did. With a factual statement, I might add.
Well, it's okay.
But nonetheless, I full well knew.
You and I both know the facts don't matter.
I have to be 0% surprised. 0% surprised by the result, but I got to say I was about 5% surprised. So we had the question back on May 28th. Was that Friday or Thursday? Anonymous Big 12 coach says BYU is the best football team in the conference with the best coaches and is the most physical team. What's your assessment of this? I think that was it was either Wednesday or Thursday because PK was here. I remember talking about this. To which Mus Emeritus, who's a longtime listener and commenter, and obviously from the name a massive Ute fan, says anonymous Big 12 coach says BYU has more felonies charged than conference championships. To which I responded, and I probably shouldn't have. Actually, it was an anonymous Ute fan, unless you want to put your name on it. And game on.
DJ.
No. But it was Mus Emeritus. I don't know if his name is Bob or Joe or Laverl. It does seem like generationally, Utah parents have gone away from the Laverls.
Yes, yeah. No, that's
when I got here, it was still happening.
Laverl.
Yeah. When I got here, it was still happening. I got here in the 90s. You could still, but I think the names were changing, but they were still out there, because of a name someone picked in the 50s or 60s, and that person was 30, 40, 50 years old. So, yeah. But those seem to have gone away now. You got way more of the Tanners and the, So, anyways, Laverl. So then PK catches a stray. It was PK, I don't know, some AI pig or something. I don't know what's going on there, but there's literally a hog, swine with a bad toupee. I don't know what's going on there. Len says Mus Emeritus will be more bitter and angry in 2.5 years when they realize they need a new coach because they ran off Witt and handed the reins over to what's his name. Okay. Now, Morgan's catching strays now. Hasn't Morgan Scally done enough to deserve a little more than what's his name? If you want to go, he's never been a head coach, I don't know how this is going to work out. Okay, fair. We've seen the baton passed from a legend to somebody before, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And the Utes have hit on 3 head coaches in a row. McBride, clearly a very good hire. Urban, clearly a very good hire. Kyle, clearly a very good hire. Hey, they may not hit again. I get it. But I think he's earned a little more than what's his name. Worst case scenario, Morgan's an excellent defensive coach. Now, will he be an excellent head coach? Will he be very good, poor, I don't know, mediocre, remains to be seen. Let's let him coach a few seasons and try to figure that out.
I thought you were going to bring up the other factual statement you made. I just saw.
I followed that up.
Okay, here we go.
Not content to play with matches, I had to grab a can of gas. It's amazing. They paid the winningest coach in school history $13 million to go away after an 11-2 season. They used significant rainy day reserves to come up with that money. Now, did I say anything there that wasn't factually spot on, Yuck?
No,
It is amazing. He is the winningest coach.
Yeah.
They paid him $13 million to go away, and they were coming off 11-2.
He gets to double dip while coaching at Michigan this coming season.
And he used significant rainy day resources.
Yeah.
$13 million they didn't have to spend. They could have let him coach another year.
We had Jason Badikow on.
I know.
And the report out there says they used...
Straight from the auditor.
They used $19 million to cover losses to make it look like they made a $4.6 million
Well, I
bonus.
can figure out where 13 of the 19 are spent.
I'm just saying, yeah.
That's just some simple Arizona State math right there.
They've gone from $60.5 million to $5.8 million.
Well, they could be at 19. And granted, the way they're going, the way the costs are going up, they'd burn through this at some point.
Well, they said the next 2 fiscal years, they're going to burn through the rest of that cash.
Yeah, and I get it. The price of poker is going up, and donor fatigue is real. I've talked with people at the highest levels 100% seriously. No cheap shots about that. There was no camera. There's no microphone. They don't want to be quoted. So I won't. But really high-level people not blaming staff and, there's people who do the fundraising, right? And there's administrators over them and all that. They're not blaming them. They're like, hey, people only have so much money. We have to raise so money. The community's only so big. There's all these causes out there people can give their money to. There's no end to the list of nonprofits. I mean, every university that needs money for its athletic department needs money for the rest of the school as well. It doesn't matter if you're the U and you've got the med school. There always seem to be like 4 cranes building something up at the med school at all times. I don't know what it is, but there's always cranes. Utah State, UVU, UC Santa Barbara, ASU, wherever. I mean, everybody's raising money to pay people and build buildings, and you can't get all the money you need from taxes. You got to go out and raise it privately.
I did not see this over the weekend, so I'm reading through some
Carbon Ute. So the guy that cashed checks from BYU is taking shots at Utah again. Everyone is shocked. Worthless troll.
What?
I don't know, man. I got 0 checks from BYU.
The nameless, faceless...
Carbon Ute at Toad Baker.
Yeah, the nameless, faceless Twitter troll mob is ridiculous.
And Scally, we trust at Ficklin for Heisman. Again, long-time listener, long-time tweeter. Make sure to fluff Ryan Smith's pillows before you leave his house, David.
What? What is going on here?
You got to shoot the messenger if you don't like the message. And the message is 100% fact. There's nothing you say about the message, so it's got to be a personal attack.
I agree with that, but
it doesn't bother me at all. Now, Cougar fans rallied to my defense, which is awesome except for one key fact. If you back this up 3-4 years, Cougar fans think I'm fluffing pillows for Kyle Whittingham or Cam Rising because I'm saying good things about him. Well, they won the conference and they beat the snot out of Oregon and USC. They beat the snot out of Oregon twice. They scraped past USC 43-42, then dominated them in the second half of the Pac-12 title game. To be clear, not to lump SC in with Oregon. Oregon took 2 beatings. The winning and the losing, the headlines, that determines what we say, people. We got going on 25 years of this. We've beaten the odds 5 times over. Everybody who's even remotely associated with his business knows it's freaky weird. PK and I know it's freaky weird. We can't even take all the credit for it. We'd be stupid to do that. We've done some good work. We've been super fortunate to really good shows and for reasons out of the host control. There's tons of stories like that in radio. Tons of them. We're fortunate we're not one of those dozens and dozens and dozens of stories. But nonetheless, you don't last as long as we do playing favorites. There's no point in it. You people, some of you are a little out of control due to your massive fandom, which pays our checks, so we can't even control it. We can't even complain about it, or nor can we control it. We can't do either. But there's a lot of you out there, like, it just doesn't pass the sniff test. I've been home listening to San Diego radio back in the day when my parents were alive, driving around town to whatever great aunt and uncle's house to visit the relatives in their 80s. I have funny stories about that. And I'm listening to the radio, and they're talking up the charts. They can really go to the Super Bowl this year. Click. No, they can't. I hope they get back to 500. They're coming up short at like 15 of the 22 positions. Are you kidding me? Don't waste time lying to people. Most of you know better. Just tell the truth. And you know the truth is, it's amazing with the red ink they have, which I'm not sure is anybody's fault. It's the way things are going in sports. Everything's accelerating so quickly. And the level of team they're trying to keep up with is pretty high.
Yeah, but
why can't you beat Penn State in the Rose Bowl? Why can't you beat Ohio State in the Rose Bowl? Just totally overlooking. Did you see what they just did to USC and Oregon? Do you know how much money those two have? Are you kidding me?
Things change quick, though.
But that one's amazing.
I agree.
Just stomach Kyle one more year. I get him constantly talking about retirement was a bad idea. I told PK at the time, don't crawl out on the limb and predict what Kyle is going to do. He has the right to change his mind. He has earned the right to change his mind. Stepping away is a big decision. He's got a great gig. He loves what he's doing. If he changes his mind and coaches another year, well, that's the way it goes. Didn't see him taking the Michigan job until right before he did. But hey, another story for us. All right, DJ and PK. Hey, Tripp had my back. You get ripped damn near every post you make, and I'm here for it. You got to be one of the biggest zoobs on this site, especially for a local sports guy. You don't even try to hide it anymore. Yak, you've known me a long time. Have you ever gotten in your car driving home, and I know you replay the show in your mind. We all do that, right? You ever thought, yes, DJ's the biggest zoob? No. You've thought a lot of things. DJ can't pay attention. DJ lost the plot in the middle of that interview. But again, am I telling the truth, Yak? You've thought those things.
No, I've never thought DJ, what a zoom. Like that, no. That is never. No. I've produced a show for 12 years.
When I'm out there spending your time, a.k.a. wasting your time after the show, I'll talk about the Gauchos and the Aztecs. But the Utes, the Cougars, and the Aggies? What? I was on my phone yesterday texting with people. Gauchos up 1-0 after 4. I mean, they were running their fourth pitcher out there. They weren't likely to beat Texas, and I don't know what they would have done in a fifth game, which they would have had to win also. They botched it when the number 2 guy, who they pitched in the opener, got beat by Tarleton State. That was the whole plan. The Gauchos have one of the best pitchers in the country. And they were saving him for Texas in game 2. So then he ends up pitching against Holy Cross. That didn't do us any good. I mean, it did. We won the game, but it wasn't going to get us out of the regional. All right, DJ and PK. Coming up next, Ben Anderson. We got 4 theories. I think Game 7 reinforced 4 things that we all don't like about the NBA. They're going to keep happening. Why? Because it's how you win. We'll get to that next. Stay with us.